And so the argument I would make to you is I can show you how, when you take the personality of Trump out of it, you just look at the policy agenda and you go like issue by issue. His policy, both what he enacted during his first term and the stuff that he talks about now, is where most of those working class people are at. It's actually in that kind of moderate middle. He sounds a lot more like a Democrat from the 90s than he sounds like a Republican from the 2000s, or then a Democrat from today sounds like a Democrat from the 90s. So we could go through that. But I think also, even at a larger level, I totally respect and understand people who can't get past the character, who can't get past the shit talking, whatever. But I think even this question of whether you're casting your vote based on policy or based on character or sort of high level abstract ideas like democracy. I mean, of course you would say democracy is not an abstract idea, right? But even that decision, I think at the end of the day, today is going to come down to that class divide and whether an American, a person feels that they have the luxury of saying, I'm going to vote for the person who I feel makes me feel at an abstract level better, or I'm going to vote for the person who's just like, I have this feeling like they're going to be able to get the economy back to where it was in 2019 when working class people saw their first wage increases for the first time in 60 years and inflation was still low.
Sure. So, okay, how to start? Um, there are things that I can kind of agree with, but I would say that these things are meaningless because I would say they're like second or third order. So I would say that like if I was to agree that Americans are having broad agreements around policy, it's only happening because on the first order or on a lower order, what their concept of policy is so far removed from the factual reality of whatever it is we're talking about that like one of the issues that we're having right now is one of the issues that we're having, and I'm going to come back to this a lot, is that the right is involved in so much misinformation. It has destroyed our ability to have policy conversation. We don't do policy in the United States right now on the conservative side. It doesn't exist, and we can get into that deeper. But I would say that like a really good example of this has to do with I would cite this example. I would say that probably the vast majority of Americans actually would agree on things like a vaccine mandate if we all agreed on the underlying facts. If I could show you that a vaccine was incredibly safe and that the disease had a high level of transmission and was incredibly lethal, I think almost everybody needs to be like, yeah, of course, everybody has to get vaccinated, right? I don't think that even though we're debating over lockdowns and whether we should do them or not, or debating over vaccines and whether or not we should mandate them or even offer them, I don't think the debate is really about those things. I think it's about the underlying facts that we believe to be true about those things. How am I going to convince somebody of a vaccine mandate if they think that, Bill Gates put microchips in the vaccine to make your dick fall off or something, right? That's not a real conversation. And then conversely, right, as an extension of that for this conversation, to say that, oh no, well, Americans do agree on this particular policy point. I don't even know what they think that policy means when they're from the right, especially from the right, and several orders of magnitude worse than from the left, when the misinformation machines that are being powered from Donald Trump from the top down are so powerful. They are destroying our ability to have a conversation in this country.
Okay, I'm not gonna like waste time being like, well, the Democrats also do misinformation. Like I'm sure, like I'm sure there are things that Democrats have done that you would also be like, yeah, that's lame, but not as bad. So let's just set that aside, right? Because
Well,
but
wait,
yeah.
I think that is probably my biggest pet peeve when I argue with a ton of people right now. So I don't think we should set that aside.
Oh, okay.
So as a quick thing, right? Are you familiar with the Fox News Dominion lawsuit?
Yeah.
Nothing on the left is even remotely close to that. Nothing, right? Would you agree with that, or do you think there's something on the left that is like comparable to that? In
I do. Yeah. I would say that the sort of constant implication that Donald Trump was an illegitimate president, as Hillary Clinton put it, for the whole 4 years of his presidency, because he was a Putin plant. I think that that was incredibly divisive for the country.
well,
Was
when I say comparable, I mean in terms of like just blatant lies, right? Like somebody could have that
well,
opinion, but the
well,
Dominion stuff was the all of the execs and all of the show hosts knew that they were lying, and they continued to do so because they didn't want to lose their audience to Newsmax and OAN.
Well, if I recall correctly, it was only Maria Bartiromo and Tucker Carlson who were mentioned in the suit, and Tucker Carlson himself had Sidney Powell on and gave her a very vigorous. It was very interesting because he was named in the lawsuit, but his interview with Sidney Powell, he concluded there's no there, and he was literally saying to her, "I'm begging you to produce the evidence." Like, I mean, it's a 10-minute interview, and he concludes it, and then she signs off, and he says to the audience, "She did not produce it. We are waiting. If she wants to produce it, we'll have her back on." So it was really just the two hosts who were named, and one of them, I still to this day don't understand why he was named because he gave her actually the most vigorous interview she had outside of, CNN and MSNBC. I will say that, after the 2016 election, 66% of Democratic voters thought that Putin had actually intervened in the voting tallies to change the results of the election. So
Wait,
to
but
me,
if we were to
yeah.
compare that, how many still believe? First of all, I don't know if I believe that first number, but let's say that that was true. How many believe that
Mhm.
now?
What do you mean? How many believe it
Well,
now?
because right now, like 80% plus of conservatives, by reputable polling, 80 plus percent of conservatives don't believe that the results of the last election are legitimate.
So we have 66 to 80. Okay,
Well, no,
yeah,
but
it's a
that
little bit
66, I
higher.
might have believed that like at the heyday of the height of the election, but certainly not for months or
Yeah,
years
because
afterwards.
I mean, I would submit it's because they won the next election, and if the Republicans win this election, their trust will also go down because that is sort of the nature of the beast. When you're back at sitting pretty, your trust in the institutions which served you returns, right? So
Well,
we will have a chance to compare that.
but the Democrats never ever engaged in a scheme similar to J6 on the level that Trump did. There were like multiple criminal conspiracies that were moving in
Why
tandem.
why do you think 66% of Democrats thought Putin had intervened to change the tallies?
Uh,
What's your read on that?
I mean, part of it was probably because of Trump and his campaign's behavior, right? The fact that Donald Trump was openly calling for Russia to leak 10,000 emails on public media, the fact that Roger Stone was openly and brazenly working with Julian Assange to leak stuff about the Democrats that was hacked out of their convention by a Russian hacker, the fact that Julian Assange, who was a supporter of Trump, said, "I'm not going to leak anything bad about Trump's campaign because I don't think there's anything that bad to leak." I think that
So
people
you don't think Clinton literally saying Trump is an illegitimate president because Putin got him elected had anything to do with Democrats changing their minds about that?
I think that there's
Or the
one quote that Hillary
Yeah.
said, but that was after the election, and Hillary conceded that night, right?
Yeah, no, I'm glad she conceded that night.
Yeah, and
It's just I
Trump
think it's
engaged in
insufferable.
multiple like criminal actions to try to overturn the election outcome, right?
Well, okay, so I we can debate January 6th. I don't think it will be
Mm-hmm.
very productive because I don't think I think at the end of the day my difference from you will come down to a kind of theory of mind and unknowable thing, which is Trump's intention and how he intended that day to go down. I really don't think we're going to agree on that. Can I go back to the policy thing though, because I think it's really important.
You can, yeah, we can go back to that if you want, but it will come back here because I think this is everything. Because I think that the theory of mind and all the other conversation topics don't matter because it draws this weird false equivalency of like, well, all these things are happening. It's like, no, there's like a crazy thing that's happening right now, and I don't know why nobody's talking about it. It's insane to me. Like, just as a quick matter of things, would you agree that January 6th was easily worse than Watergate?